I'm going to begin tonight by reading a poem by someone other than myself. It's by William Butler Yeats, who is certainly a good example of someone other than myself. Most dramatic example. And I'm reading it in acknowledgement of the crisis this country is going through. It's a poem that Yeats wrote during the Irish Civil War of 1920 and 1921. It's part of a longer work called Meditations in a Time of Civil War, and it's one part of it. The title is The Stare's Nest by My Window. And a stare is an archaic word for starling, the bird. And I'm quite sure he picked stare because there are more rhyme words with stare than starling. I can only think of darling. And it's about, it has an architectural image of loosening masonry, and the birds have fled because of the war, and he asks the bees to come and rebuild. So it's an image of reconstruction. The stare's nest by my window. The bees build in the crevices of loosening masonry, and there the mother birds bring grubs and flies. My wall is loosening. Honey bees, come build in the empty house of the stair. We are closed in, and the key is turned on our uncertainty. Somewhere a man is killed or a house burned, yet no clear fact to be discerned. Come build in the empty house of the stair. A barricade of stone or of wood, some 14 days of civil war. Last night they trundled down the road. That dead young soldier and his blood, come build in the empty house of the stair. We had fed the heart on fantasies, the heart grown brutal from the fair. More substance in our enmities than in our love. Oh, honey bees, come build in the empty house of the stair. I'm going to read a few poems that I think are, at the heart of so much poetry, and somewhere, if you dig deep enough in mind, you find, I think, a center, a core, and the core is expressing a kind of gratitude. I mean, there's nothing to write about except that we're alive now and that we're going to be dead. I mean, I think it's enough to keep one busy. And a few poems I'm going to read interspersed without much ordering are poems I think that are about the moment and the importance of the moment. I was thinking of an odd analogy the other day that you know, if you break an atom of which matter is composed of, you release energy. So matter is composed of atoms, and time is composed of moments. And you can actually do the same thing with a moment in time. You can, through scrutiny and observation, you can open it, and there is a release of energy, I think. Well, this poem is called Velocity. In the club car that morning, I had my notebook open on my lap and my pen uncapped, looking every inch the writer, right down to the little writer's frown on my face. But there was nothing to write about except life and death and the low warning sound of the train whistle. I did not want to write about the scenery that was flashing past, cows spread over a pasture, hay rolled up meticulously, things you see once and will never see again.
What I want to do is massage a cliche question just a little bit. The basic kernel of the question is, when did you start writing poems? But I'm interested in the fact that you went all the way through graduate school in English, got a PhD, and then 6 or 7 years after you got your doctorate, you had your first chapbook. Were you writing poems all through graduate school, or what?
Yeah, I was. I wasn't very diligent. It was a combination of being intimidated, really. I was writing poetry, and I was perhaps being overly modest, but I think everyone goes through that stage where, you know, you think that writers are gods, and now, of course, I know that they are, but I was working in the. I mean, writing for me was kind of a covert activity. I kept doing it, and I went through a number of phases. I was kind of I was kind of a proto-beatnik for a while, and I wrote a lot of kind of bad Ferlinghetti and that kind of thing. And I went through a long kind of brooding romantic genius period where I was really too sensitive to write anything. Mm-hmm. And that lasted a few years. And Wallace Stevens cast a big shadow over me, and I wrote a lot of, I was kind of smart enough about language, I think, that I could produce something that looked like a mediocre Wallace Stevens poem. But frankly, I was cheating. I really didn't know what I was writing about. And I think if my poetry has any clarity now, or too much clarity, some might say, it's probably because I'm making up for earlier sins of my own dabbling into being obscure. I mean, I now think that poetry is difficult to write. I think Randall Jarrell said it's like, he likened it to playing a pin the tail on the donkey, but he said for most poets there's no tail and there's no donkey. There's just a blindfold.